Enterprise Management 360.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Tech Chat. Today I'm really excited to be speaking with Peter Finter, who's the Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at Couchbase. Peter is joining us to walk us through their research into digital transformation. So let's go ahead and find out his thoughts on the matter. Peter, it's really great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So Peter, Couchbase surveyed 450 heads of digital transformation enterprises across the US, the UK, France and Germany. So what percentage of companies have made good progress in this area? And what do you think this is attributed to?
This is the third time that we've run this survey, so it's been very interesting to see the progression over the last 3 years. And the takeaway from this year's survey is about 3/4 of enterprises actually feel that they are making good progress with digital transformation, which is encouraging. Largely this is because they've been at it for a while. This is not their first rodeo, and digital transformation is not net new to organizations today, but it is picking up the pace. And I think part of that is because competitive pressures are increasing. When we looked at why enterprises feel compelled to digitally transform, it boils down to, largely speaking, competitive pressures. Their sense of being disrupted by others that are being innovative around particularly customer experience is causing enterprises to invest more heavily into this area. But they're also worried about a couple of other things. One is that they're worrying about being relevant. About 46% of enterprises told us that they were concerned that if they didn't digitally transform, their relevance in the marketplace would diminish. And related to that is their ability to attract and retain staff. So again, about 42% of enterprises worry that they will lose staff if they don't digitally transform. So it's a combination of competitive pressures, customer expectations, and their need to stay relevant in order to be attractive to their employees to maintain sort of their business edge.
That's a real shame to hear, because digital transformation should be a super exciting time for companies, but it actually sounds like quite a stressful endeavour. So for these companies that are just not reaching their digital ambitions, what do you think is leading to this and how can it be resolved?
I think the biggest issue that we've identified through the surveys is that enterprises know that they ought to be doing something, but they're not always clear about how best to go about it. In fact, to such a degree that CIOs who carry the burden of responsibility typically for digital transformation for their enterprises are concerned that in many cases their business leader colleagues are rushing into projects without thinking them all the way through. And one of the consequences of that is that a very large percentage, in fact, over 80% of digital projects either fail outright or fail to deliver on the benefits that were promised, or delayed or scaled back, which is pretty concerning. But it speaks to this idea that it's still not fully understood. And the reality is that many executives are not technically trained or come up through that route. And so consequently don't have a full appreciation of what it's going to take to successfully execute a digital transformation project. And we should understand that that is a combination of technology and people. And it's the people side which is often secondary in consideration when digital projects are undertaken.
So just going back to the people that you mentioned, executives, etc., who are we really looking to help us through our digital transformation?
I think what CIOs and IT leaders are looking for is the support and buy-in of their colleagues so that they are working as a team, as a partnership, rather than seeking to implement technology in isolation. That's challenging enough, but in order to get the full benefit for the business, it really does require that technology to be integrated into the business processes and the business plan. And that means more involvement from senior colleagues at the C-suite outside of the technology area alone.
Okay, fantastic. I also just wanted to get your opinion on why companies should strive to digitally innovate and see through their transformation.
I think there's kind of the reflecting back on kind of what are their drivers and motivations. At the end of the day, it's about being able to deliver a better product or a better service to your customers. And awesome about digital transformation and why it's opening the doors to so many new opportunities is the fact that reach is no longer limited to your physical presence. By being online, available as an app or through a website, enterprises are able to reach now millions more prospective customers than they historically would have been able to do. And one of the implications of that is that the applications that they build to serve those customers and to serve the employees who are serving those customers now need to be designed quite differently. In the old days, you might be thinking about inventory in your store, as an example, being information which is essentially proprietary, confidential information, and only a few employees should be authorized to know that. Today, we think completely differently. As consumers, our expectation is that we'll know exactly whether the product we want is available and in stock and where and when. And so that's the inversion. The application is no longer about a few hundred internal employees. Now it's suddenly about potentially millions of online consumers. And that inversion is what's driving the need for digital transformation. And it's driving the demand for different types of technology to support that.
Okay, brilliant. Digital transformation is very, very new. So how does a company know when they've finished it? How do you know when you've come out the other end of your transformation journey?
I think that's an excellent question, actually. And, one of the things that speaks to is, do we have clear exit criteria for the projects that we undertake? When we start that project, is there a middle and an end at the point at which we can say, yes, we did achieve that improved total cost of ownership or that improved response time for our customers? And one of the ways to deal with that, given that it can be a bit overwhelming, is to break it down into its constituent parts. Rather than think of digital transformation as one thing, maybe it's a series of things which build on top of each other. Any business leader would. It's important to identify and prioritize the needs within the business and to determine which projects deserve to be funded first before others become important. And so I think breaking it down into its constituent parts and defining for each of those projects a specific success criteria up front helps you know when you've achieved it. And if you've not achieved it, what do you need to do to go ahead and get it done?
Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really, really great to get your insights.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much for tuning into this episode of Tech Chat, and thanks once again to Peter for the insightful discussion. If you're interested in generating leads for your business, then head on over to our Tell Us Your Audience page, where we can distribute your content across North America, APAC, and Europe, delivering SQLs and MQLs right back to you. In the meantime, make sure you're following us on Twitter or LinkedIn, and for more great content, head on over to our website, em360tech.com.